Hello and welcome to I think the first video, like actual video. I think before I was just making, clips and stuff, but today I just want to talk about my DS3 level 1 run. And I'll put like my ratings towards like the end of the vid, whether it's like 10 out of 10 difficulty. I'm gonna do later, like in a future video, ranking all of them, like all of the games at like the lowest level. Like after I finish all of them, I'll do like easiest to hardest kind of thing, and then I'll rate like the overall level. But I'll still like give it a rating towards the end if it was like whatever difficulty in that essentially. Okay, so with just this kind of like gameplay in the background. I'm just gonna sort of talk about kind of like the experience I went through during it, and it essentially was just very, very linear. I'm kind of just gonna talk about the experience. I'm not gonna go in like full detail about like a specific fight. I'll say like what my favorite is or whatever, but I'm not gonna like go into full detail about like how to beat the boss. That's not what this video is about. But it's kind of more of just like a journey kind of thing. And I just want to talk about how Dark Souls 3 is very, very linear. I feel like there was no broader expansion than the given path given towards you. And I feel like with it being at level 1, you got your weapon, which I'm grateful for that you get like your weapon like very early on, that being the broadsword. And I think that's a very good thing because I feel like when you think about other games, since Elden Ring was my first Souls game, I think you kind of think when you're playing the other ones, obviously you need to like prep before you do your SL1 run. You're like, dang, I wish I could get access to a better weapon early on. And that's kind of how it is with DS3 as well. You get the Dragon Slayer axe, which I use for some fights later, like I would say, yeah, way later on, like kind of halfway or more than halfway through the game. I think that's where a lot of people kind of tend to get nervous about the SL1 run because they're like, oh, I wish I could use that weapon early on. But for DS3, the broadsword's actually a really viable weapon. I think I used it for a majority of all the runs because obviously, like halfway through, you can only use it. It's like the only weapon you can use, and so. But I was kind of also debating if it's better to use the raw gem or the fire gem. Obviously, you can see in the clips that I used the fire gem, and I tended to like the fire gem more for early game because you can't. I mean, you can get the pine resin actually pretty fairly or pretty easily, but because the ash is super easy to get. But I felt like using the fire clutch ring, I think since you get it earlier and you don't get to use like get the prisoner's chain until you defeat champion Gundyr, you see that the fire clutch ring is actually more viable early on. Sure, you can also get the lingering dragon crest ring to amplify the longevity of the paper, but I feel like I would rather have because you also get the Lloyd's sword and shield ring very I would say yeah, very early on after like the first boss. Yeah, after Vort you can get those. Well no, you have to beat the Crystal Sage to get them as well. But Crystal Sage is actually so easy. And it's actually incredibly easy. And you notice that you already have two talisman slots filled up. So, and then you also get the Chloranthy ring in Undead Settlement. So you already have three ring slots used up, and why would you use the Lingering Dragon Crest ring when you could just use the fire dragon, whatever crest ring, to amplify the fire damage when on your fire gem, because you get the fire gem after defeating like the demon when you meet, the onion guy. I don't know his name, the onion guy. And I would say that's more viable, the fire gem early on. But again, I would say later on, it is, I would say, so much more viable to use the raw gem on the broadsword because of just the ability to use the pine resin. Like you see, I'll talk about it later, but when fighting like Gale, you can use, the poison or whatever, um, human pine resin on the broadsword, which makes the Gale fight so much easier, in my opinion. And, but now I kind of just want, that's kind of like the early game. I would say that's the early game. And then later on, when you're fighting these bosses, I would say there's not like, it's hard because I know there's the saying that every person's first Souls game is the hardest. And obviously, I would have to agree because my first game was Elden Ring, and that was super hard. That was super hard. And even when I do runs now, I still die a couple of times. But when I'm doing other games, it's just I can tell like obviously they came out earlier, like yeah, they came out earlier, so they're easier. They're not as like like they're easier. And but I still see people like actually struggle with bosses whenever I'm watching them. And it's like, how, dude? That's such an easy boss. But I mean, I think it is a fair thing to say that your first Souls game will be the hardest. I would like to talk about my least favorite boss fights and my favorite boss fights, and then probably just like a neutral boss fight because try to give it some like meat and potatoes, I guess. Okay, so for a neutral boss fight, I have to put it on Dark Eater Madir. I see the clip now. This boss fight is actually not that bad. It's not, I think this took me like 5 or 6 attempts because I feel like people try to be too aggressive on Dark Eater Madir, and I feel like that's what makes them lose because they're trying too aggressive. They don't know his patterns, and I feel like it's very difficult for some people. And I know for me, I I've only really played Dark Souls 3 like 2 or 3 times. No, 3 times. Actually, no, 2 times. The third time I didn't even fight Midir. I only have like 80 hours on the game comparatively to some other people who have like freaking like 300. I only have 80 hours on the game. And Dark Eater Madir on my first playthrough, not with the SL1, just like regular, it was super hard. But when I like studied his moveset, I found a guide on YouTube, you probably searched it up, that taught me all of his movesets, and it actually became a really fun fight. It's still kind of mid tier because there's nothing super special about it, just because it's like, yeah, I'm just waiting for like his combo to end so I can get 1, 2 swings. So it's not a very exciting battle, but it is where it's like constant action. There's no like dead zone time where I'm like constantly dodging and running away. I just can strategically see where and when he's gonna attack and where his punish windows are. So I'd say Dark Eater Madeira is a great example of just like a neutral like boss fight. Next, for my least favorite boss fights, I'm gonna put two up here. My least favorite boss fights has to go to Osiris, Osiris and the Demon Prince or whatever, Demon from Below. I don't even care. But to start off, Osiris is just a horrible boss fight. It's a horrible boss fight. There's nothing good about it. His first phase is a cakewalk. The only annoyance is when you're like hitting him and then he does his like, I don't know, frost thing where like he slams his staff on the ground and you just can't counter him. You just have to wait for it to run out and then you can get more swings in. But then his second phase, there's just one move that you'll probably see in the clip, or you've already seen, where you can't even read his movement. You can't even read it. He just leaps at you, and the hitbox is horrible. You just have to pray that he's not looking at you when he does it, where you can get hit from the hitbox, or if he just doesn't do it. And that's what makes this fight horrible. It's not a hard boss fight. It's not like a hard boss fight. It's just there's just the one move that just makes it so bad. Just so bad. And so that's why Osiris is, I would say, number two on the worst boss fight. Okay, so the worst boss fight in Dark Souls 3, hands down, goes to the Demon Prince. The Demon Prince is the worst boss in this entire game at Soul Level 1. Whenever you drop down, you instantly apply, the resin, and then you have to target the one that is jumping at you. So you get two swings, but then that's the worst part. It's a double fight. And the other guy is going spreading like some, I don't even know, some like fairy dust, and you have to dodge it, or else your run is low key cooked. Actually, you can take one hit, but then you have to potion up, and then they play you so aggro. The bosses are the demon princes are so aggro on you. They literally won't hop off. They're on you constantly. And then you'll hear the scream. The audio cue is if the second guy like screams, like the second time he screams is when he's coming to attack you, and then you have to deal with both of them for a time where you can't swing at them at all, and you just have to keep running away. And then finally, when you see the lava coming from the first guy's hands, then his phase of like attacking is over. So then now you attack the other guy who's being aggressive. But you have the other guy who's now doing the pixie dust and then like the toxic gas. And he also sometimes swings when you get up close. So it's so annoying. Every time you try to attack, you have to look behind you to see if the guy's either doing the pixie dust or like the breathing, because if you get hit by any of those, you get toxic, you lose health because you want to keep your Lloyd's shield and Lloyd's shield and Lloyd's sword going at all times so you can get the most out of the damage and the most out of the resist if you get hit. And you can only get like 1, 2, and then 1, 2. And then also if you run out of like, I didn't run out of the whatever toxic like balls that you eat up, but still if like those are gone, you're cooked the whole fight. And the toxic is so annoying. But I'll give a tip for this. I'll give a tip. Always attack the guy who is like the aggressive one. Because if you do, you get not the lightning, like the laser demon prince. And that is far easier than like the aggressive one. I think I actually I second tried the laser one because once that guy goes into like his laser mode where he's just spewing lasers, you actually get so much damage off. You get so much damage off. And so that's why you need to actually get the laser one. Because I've had some runs with like the aggressive one, and there is absolutely there's hit windows obviously, but when he goes into like his like I don't know, power mode where he's like breathing a ball into the sky, you're like you get fried, bro. You get fried. So that's just the worst boss. The second phase isn't horrible. It's just the first when you're fighting both of them at the same time where it's absolutely cancerous. But that's pretty much all I gotta say about that one. Okay, next we got the top of the top, the best boss fights, the absolute cream of the crop, best boss fights in Dark Souls 3 at SL1. And I'm gonna do two. I'm gonna do two again. In second place, we got Mommy Sister Freed. Mommy Sister Freed. Second phase is horrible. We're not gonna talk about the second phase. we're not going to talk about the second phase. The second phase can actually just run away or die. We don't care about the second phase because who wants Father Arendelle when you have Mommy Sister Freed? So we got Mommy Sister Freed, first phase, pretty simple, but just it's so nice. Like you like obviously there's some like, she's trying to tickle your feet, like she's like you're doing like like a ring around the rosy, waiting for her to go invisible so like you can get a backstab. The backstabs are actually really hard in the first phase. Backstabs, people make it look easy. It's actually very hard. And you kind of just wait for the stuff to like happen when she's rushing you. And you get like some easy like hits in. But first phase, good, amazing. We love it. Second phase, again, we were not talking about the second phase. Third phase now. Oh my god, the third phase is absolutely amazing. So a little tip, I said I wasn't gonna give tips, but I'm gonna give a tip. Whenever she's rising and she does her first like kind of thing where she jumps in the air with a black smoke or black flame, it's called, you can actually get a backstab if you run and dodge forward. If you run and dodge forward, you can actually get the backstab on it. So I highly suggest, and also you'll see in the vid, but you swap rings. You have to swap rings when you're doing it. So when you're in the first phase, you'll have Hornet Ring. When you're in the second phase, I have to talk about it. You'll use Pontiff Right Eye, and then when you're going to the third phase, you have Hornet Ring again. You switch back because you'll need the Hornet Ring because you do so much more damage with the backstab. Because you're also not going to be able to hit her as much with the right, because she's so aggressive. But that's what makes this fight good. I know Demon Prince is aggressive, but don't talk about it. But with the Sister Freed third phase, it's a little cheesy. You kind of wait for like three specific moves. The Black Flame one, the ice one when she jumps up and hits you with the ice. You can also backstab on that one. And then the third when she goes invisible again, you can also get the backstab. But it's much more fun because it's so visually pleasing. That's what makes this fight great is the visuals, the music, and the boss fight itself is great at level 1 because when you're doing SL1, the earlier bosses, like, they hit you and you're like, oh, it's okay. I'll just, it's okay. But if you get hit here, you're dead. You're just dead if you get hit. And that's what makes it so good. Because if you get hit, it's over. So you almost have to be perfect. Obviously, I wasn't, like, perfect. But it just makes it more fun when it's, like, high stakes. And when you get to the third phase, you're, like, nervous. Because you're like, oh my gosh, I beat the first and second phase pretty cleanly. All I need to do now is there's just one more phase. And so that's what makes this fight so good. Because then when you die, you're like, oh my god, I gotta do the first and second phase again. Especially that second phase. I hate that second phase. But that's what makes this fight so good. And this is why it's the number 2 fight in Dark Souls 3 SL1. Now, boys and girls, people from all ages, we got the best fight of Dark Souls 3 and at SO1 and hands down it goes to Gale, Slave Knight Gale. This fight I think took me the longest and it was oh so worth it. This is the best boss fight at SL1 in the entire game. Can it be annoying? Oh yes it can. But when you win, your heart is beating, it's bumping. You're like, oh my god, I'm done, I'm done. I was screaming that when I beat it. I'm like, I'm done, I'm done, I'm done, I'm done. It's absolutely amazing when you get to beat it. It's the best thing in the world. When you defeat Gale, your heart's pounding, like I said, and it's just the best feeling in the world. So like I said, I went with the broadsword here because I think you get more DPS than the Dragon Slayer axe because you have more like swings and actually your stamina consumption goes down because you also have to remember when you're using the Dragon Slayer axe, you use up 2 rings, the Knight's ring and another ring or Hunter ring and Knight ring. So your dex and strength go up so you're able to use it. And that leaves you with there's just 2 more rings that you have to like use, and you're obviously gonna use the prisoner chain. And then some people use Flynn ring, RTSR. I don't like RTSR because I feel like if there is an attack, that doesn't one-shot me, I know in the third phase I got hit once or twice and I survived because I think I had Lloyd's shield ring. I don't remember. I think I had Lloyd's shield ring and it saved me. So if I had RTSR, I would have gone absolutely cooked, and I would have probably been super mad. So I don't like going with the RTSR. I think what I had was Flynn's ring, Clorency ring, +3, prisoner chain, and then Lloyd shield ring. I'm pretty sure I had that. And basically, I feel like what makes it so good is that just the first phase is actually I lied. I didn't have Lloyd's shield ring. I had Lloyd's sword ring, but I still didn't get one shot by any of the attacks. And I just want to say that the first phase, I did the first phase so many times. It's an easy phase. Once you learn all the timings, it's amazing. But the hard part about it is that sometimes the sand in the ground will mask the sword and you can't like see when he's swinging. So it becomes instinctual at some point. It's hard to put that into like words of how you can know when he's about to swing, but that's essentially the best advice I can give is just get instinctual to it. Or you can kind of just wait for certain attacks when he jumps up and does like his grab attack. That one's easy to dodge. You back roll and then get two swings. I think you can get three swings on it actually. But the first phase becomes instinctual at a certain point because moves are very telegraphed. There's some moves that actually aren't telegraphed, and I think I've died to them a lot before. But when you get into the attacks that he uses majority of the time, you get a pretty clean phase one throughout. And you obviously have to use the poison pine resin. That's a must. You have to use the poison pine resin. I know some people don't. They swap to the whatever, the golden pine resin. I just say use the human pine resin. It's just the most elite version of it, of the pine resins during this fight. Now, during the second phase, this is when it becomes a little more difficult and kind of where you don't cheese it necessarily. I didn't cheese it. I know some people wait for the slam attack to like punish him, but I kind of just punished him because I remembered like all of his moves. You always want to wait for just a second swing. Whenever he swings from his right, you dodge left, and then you kind of wait for him to then swing from his left to then dodge right, and then that's when you can get a punish. And then whenever I wouldn't say do this. Whenever he's shooting his bow and arrow, if you can, try to hit him before he does it, because I think you can like not stagger him, but cancel his attack. And then same thing goes for when he's like shooting those like light rays that like Gideon does. I think if you hit him before he casts them, you might be able to stagger him for like a second, so it cancels that move. Because those moves are kind of annoying because you can't really punish them like after because like they make you run away. And so also when he's doing like his like clear attack, it's actually super easy. Just dodge to the right on his like swing one, and then when he jumps up, just dodge in front. It's not bad, and you can get an easy punish. So the second phase, I think I died to the second phase the most, but it was actually like also the easiest, if that makes sense. I think if you just don't make a dumb mistake, you can easily get like the second phase like all the time. And then now for the third phase. The third phase simultaneous is just the hardest. It's not simultaneously, it's just the hardest. The hardest phase. The problem with the third phase is that you just don't know if he's going to just swing once. It's the same thing with Nameless King. Nameless King, if you know, will either swing once, twice, or three times. So you always wait for the third one just in case, just so you don't get hit. And so for this one, what I do is just wait for like the combo to end. Just wait for the combo to end. So when he's first transitioning into the third phase, just run back. So you run away from the skulls, pine resin up, and then when he kind of runs at you, like after like flying away, you can get a punish there. And then when he slams down, always just wait for the third combo. Just wait for the third one because there's nothing after the third one. So you can guarantee a punish afterwards. So that's what I would recommend for the third one or for the third phase is that just always punish him after and wait for the third combo. And then when he's doing like the same thing with second phase where he does like his like swing kind of like clear out, dodge to the right and then back up because all the skulls are gonna pop up. So dodge to the right and then back up and then he'll like kind of fly to the left or he'll like I don't think he flies, but he'll like swing his sword and then that's when you can go and punish. So be sure you're like safe from the skulls, but then after he does like the combo ending, then that's when you can punish him. And then same thing when he does the flying one, just dodge, wait for the skulls, and then when he does like his final movement, like you'll understand when his final movement is, then that's when you can punish. And so my tip for him is just always wait for his combo to end. Just wait for the third swing, and then that's when you can go for the combo. And that's what makes this fight so good is I feel like there's always like constant stimuli when you're fighting him comparatively to Demon Prince, where it's just not fun. But yeah, that's all I have to say for this fight. This is the best fight in DS3 at SL1. The best fight. Now, what you have all been waiting for. Hey, Maple Leaf, where does this like rank on the difficulty? Well, if I were to put it into a number, I would say on a difficulty scaling, saying that Elden Ring is your most hours played, is your first Souls game, and this is like your first time doing a level 1 run, I would say, since this is my first time doing a level 1 run, I did one in Elden Ring, but I didn't finish the DLC. That will be coming up soon. But I would say this is like either a 5 or a 6 out of 10 on difficulty. It's not hard. From Enix Gundyr to Lothric Prince, it is, I would say it's fairly easy. But when you get the like big bosses like Nameless King, Soul of Cinder, Gale, Sister of Freed, Dark Eater Madir, that's when like this actually gets super difficult. Or not super difficult, but fairly difficult. And you have bosses like Champion Gundyr, Pontiff Sullivan, where I would recommend you use a parry. Yeah, parry them because I think that makes them way easier in my opinion. Because the parrying in DS3 is way easier than in Elden Ring. And I would say that, yeah, this is a 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10 on the difficulty scale. Obviously, since this is my first SL run for the full game, it might be inflated. So when I come out with a video of ranking them all at a certain level, that's when you'll get a proper representation of where it fits. But for right now, I would recommend I would recommend this actually as like your first SL1 run because not only is it like fairly difficult, it's also fairly easy. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Peace.